My name is Ruby Bennett. I'm 33, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one who keeps everything from falling apart. Not because I wanted to, but because someone had to. In my family, being calm, precise, responsible, it's a role you don't get applauded for. It's assumed. It's invisible. That Sunday afternoon, the rain tapped against the kitchen windows at my parents' house, soft at first, then steadily. The smell of lemon cleaner mingled with frying onions. My mother, calm and exact, was slicing peaches with that serrated knife she's had since I was 10. My younger sister, Jenna, lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone, half smirking at some social media nonsense. The TV played quietly in the background, people arguing about vacation homes with unnaturally white teeth. I stood near the counter, my laptop open, reviewing a settlement draft for a client who liked to panic on weekends. The tie of my blouse had loosened, and I thought I'd finally found a moment of quiet. That's when my mother reached into the little ceramic bowl where we toss keys and cards, and, without a hint of hesitation, handed Jenna my credit card. "Sweetheart, use your sister's card," she said, smiling as though it were nothing. "She needs it. She'll just look around." I froze. My mouth went dry. My heart jumped in that familiar, anxious rhythm it always did when life veered off script. "Mom," I said carefully, my voice low but wide firm, "that's mine. You can't just—" "Stop being dramatic, Ruby," she waved her hand. "It's just shopping." Jenna snatched the card like it was a gift she'd been expecting all along, her grin widening, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Back to school stuff," she sang. She hasn't been in school for years. I tried to maintain calm, put it back. My mother didn't look at me. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. Her expression said, "Don't embarrass me. Don't make a scene. We're family." And in that instant, something inside me clicked. Not anger, not frustration, but a slow, deliberate awareness that I had been quietly enabling years of entitlement. Over the past decade, I had patched up every little thing. The MRI copay for Dad, the leaky roof, the rent that Jenna forgot. Each time, it felt like love. Each time, it cost me my savings, my energy, my boundaries. My $90,000 emergency fund and condo down payment, built piece by piece with thrift and discipline, had been assumed to exist for everyone else's convenience. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I told myself, keep calm, don't escalate. But inside, I felt the pressure gathering, like a storm behind my ribs, ready to break. When Jenna finally left with my card, I stayed behind, staring at the sliced peaches and the knife, at the clean counter I had wiped moments before. My phone buzzed quietly, but I ignored it. For once, I wanted to sit with the quiet hum of betrayal and responsibility. I thought about all the tiny concessions I'd made, co-signing loans, paying bills, covering gaps in their lives. Every favor had felt like a drop of water in a bathtub that eventually overflowed, and today it spilled over. I took a deep breath and typed, then deleted, a message to Jenna. "Bring my card back now." Deleted. Typed again. "This is not okay." Deleted. My hands shook. The hum of the rain, the faint scent of peaches, the softness of the TV chatter. It all made the world feel surreal. By the time I arrived at the mall, the drizzle had turned into a persistent rain. My coat clung to me, my shoes squelched on the wet pavement, and there she was, Jenna, standing in electronics, her cart overflowing with gadgets, cameras, ring lights, laptops, and headphones. A halo of fluorescent light framed her like she was a queen of entitlement. "Give me my card," I said, my voice steady, though my body felt like it was vibrating with the need to scream. Jenna blinked slowly, mock calm. "Relax," she said, as if the world owed her indulgence. The cashier slid the card into the reader. Declined. Again. She shrugged. I froze. "Calm," I told myself. My voice barely quivered. "Give it back." My mother stepped between us, hissing, "Don't humiliate your sister. People are watching." I looked around. The mall, the fluorescent lights, the strangers shuffling past. And then I said something I'd never allowed myself to say aloud before. "You took my card. It's my money. You don't have permission." For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. The click in my head, the slow, inevitable turning of the key, became louder. Not a lock closing, but a key turning from the inside. Jenna's smirk faltered. "You love making me feel like trash," she muttered, low, venomous. "You've always loved that." Give it to me, I said, my tone calm but final. She shoved the card into my chest and stalked away, mother in tow, muttering about my attitude. I sat at a nearby table, breathing slowly, heart thudding, feeling the first pangs of empowerment tempered by guilt and exhaustion. This was the beginning of something I couldn't undo. Not just the confrontation, but the realization. I could no longer be the bank, the problem solver, the invisible backbone for everyone else. I looked at the sticky food court table, the hum of strangers' chatter, the drizzle outside, and for the first time in years, I felt a strange mix of fear, clarity, and quiet, terrifying freedom. The next week felt like walking through fog. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened. Every notification, a reminder that my family assumed my calmness and my money were theirs to use. The peaches on the kitchen counter at my parents' house still haunted me. Their scent lingered in my memory, sweet and sticky, and I couldn't shake the image of Jenna grinning with my card in her hand. I kept replaying the past 10 years in my mind. Every small act of help, every loan co-signed, every midnight grocery run, it all came rushing back. The $90,000 in my savings wasn't some arbitrary pile of money. It was late-night sacrifices, skipped coffees, budgeted lunches, worn shoes, patched until the soles fell off. It was me choosing work over sleep, clarity over chaos, autonomy over comfort, and yet somehow it had become everyone else's entitlement. That Sunday, I found myself standing in my kitchen at my own apartment, staring at the stack of unopened mail. The neon glow of my city apartment lights reflected in the window. I thought about how enabling had been presented as love. You're the responsible one. You have to help. Your family. Family. The word had become a trap. I called the bank. Calm, measured, precise. The voice of a lawyer who's argued countless cases, but never one like this. I reported my card stolen, frozen, alerts set, every transaction logged, every detail documented. My hands shook, but my voice remained steady. Then came the drive to the mall. The rain had thickened, turning streets into mirrors. Taillights blurred, windshield wipers beat a rhythm that matched the pulse in my temples. When I walked into electronics, Jenna looked like she belonged to another world, a kingdom of entitlement, framed in bright lights and gadgets. "Ruby," she said, mock sweet, "you came." I didn't answer. My eyes scanned the towering stacks of electronics in her cart. Cameras that could film a documentary, designer laptops, drones, headphones that probably cost more than my rent. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just shopping. This was a pattern I'd enabled, one indulgence after another, all wrapped in smiles and family words. "Give me my card," I said. She tilted her head, the smirk teasing, casual. "Why are you so legal about everything? It's just money." "Just money?" I echoed. The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, forceful and unfamiliar. "It's not just money. It's my savings, my choices, my boundaries. And boundaries are the only thing keeping me from being swallowed by the demands you and Mom and Dad have always placed on me." Jenna's smirk faltered. For the first time, I saw hesitation. My mother hovered behind her, the polite smile of someone mediating, controlling, trying to maintain an image. But I didn't flinch. I didn't bow. "You've taken what isn't yours," I said, my voice calm but immovable. "And this ends now?" For a long, tense minute, no one spoke. The hum of the store, the fluorescent lights, the distant clatter of carts, it all seemed to fade except for the thrum of control finally shifting. Jenna shoved the card into my hands. Mom muttered something about attitude and independence, but the tone had softened, almost uncertain. I walked out of the store into the rain, my coat soaked, my chest still tight but lighter. I didn't feel victory. I felt clarity. I felt power, not the kind that comes from dominance, but from refusing to be a tool in someone else's story. That night, at my apartment, I went through my accounts. Every automated payment I'd been covering, every streaming service I'd funded, every subscription they'd assumed I'd pay, gone. Passwords changed, two-factor authentication set up, credit frozen. It felt petty at first, then it felt like breathing. And as I lay in bed, listening to the rain tapping against my window, I realized something terrifying and freeing. I had spent a decade being the family safety net, the invisible backbone, the calm one. And in that role, I had lost something vital, my ownership of my own life. For years, I had justified it with love, and now love demanded something harder: boundaries. The peaches, the knife, the mall, the cart. They weren't just objects or events. They were symbols of everything I had allowed, everything I had internalized, and everything I was finally refusing to tolerate. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of my choices, and yet, a strange lightness. The storm hadn't ended, it was only beginning, but I had drawn the line, and that line would no longer be crossed. 3 weeks passed, and the silence from my family was deafening. Texts came and went like filtered echoes of past expectations, some curt, some manipulative, all testing me. For once, I didn't reply immediately. I observed, measured, and let the weight of their words settle without responding. My apartment, my sanctuary, became a rehearsal space for the confrontation I knew was coming. I drafted a simple document, Family Financial Conduct Agreement. It was not accusatory, not punitive. It was clarity on paper, the boundaries I'd been too polite to enforce verbally. All accounts are mine. No one may access my funds without written consent. Requests for financial support must include purpose, amount, and repayment plan. No guilt language, no surprise visits, no unexpected borrowing. Emergencies only apply to true emergencies: hospital visits, critical issues, not studio lighting, online shopping, or personal whims. I stared at the words. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the realization that I had finally named my truth aloud. That evening, I arrived at my parents' house at 6. The living room smelled of old wood polish and faint tea. Mom sat poised with her usual quiet authority. Dad, pacing in his socks and sandals, seemed more tired than judgmental. And Jenna, sunglasses indoors, carting an air of defiance, looked at me as if I were a stranger. "We're going to resolve this," Dad said, raising his hands like a referee. I nodded and sat. My phone was face down on my lap, calm, precise, steady. Mom leaned forward, her notebook open. "You humiliated your sister over a misunderstanding." I drew a slow breath. "What was misunderstood?" "Your savings. We thought it was for family goals. Jenna's studio is a family investment," Mom said, her voice precise, almost rehearsed. "No," I said, calm but firm. "It's not. You're selfish. I've spent a decade covering gaps that weren't mine to fix. This is about boundaries, something I never had the courage to assert until now." Jenna snorted. "You think your little law job makes you better than us?" I laughed softly, more in disbelief than amusement. "Nothing about my work makes me better, but that's irrelevant. This is about respecting limits." Mom's eyes narrowed. "Boundaries?" "Yes, boundaries," I repeated. "For me. Not for you, not to control, but to survive." I slid the thin folder across the coffee table. Jenna glanced at it, eyes rolling. "Oh my God, what is this?" she said. "It's clarity," I replied. "It's the rules I live by. You are not to touch my accounts, my cards, or my finances. Any financial requests must be documented. No surprise borrowing, no guilt, real emergencies only." Mom's face flushed crimson. "We're not signing that." "That's fine," I said. "It still applies. You can't make rules for me." The room fell silent, thick with tension. Dad's shoulders slumped, tired, but I saw recognition flicker in his eyes. He knew. He always knew. "Get out," Mom finally said, voice low but sharp. "I will," I replied. "I'll be in touch when I'm ready." Jenna's voice broke the quiet. "Ready for what?" "Ready for me," I said simply. I left the house with a calm I hadn't felt in years. Rain had softened into mist, and the city smelled of wet asphalt and freedom. My chest, though tight, felt lighter. Not happy, not triumphant, just free. The next 3 weeks were a test. Texts escalated, then curdled, then dwindled to silence. People tried to guilt, to shame, to remind me of my role. But I refused. I let the world settle without me trying to manage it. I toured the condo I'd been saving for, ran the numbers, signed papers. My life had finally become mine. Messy, imperfect, but mine. Boxes filled my apartment. A cheap, wobbly IKEA table became our dinner spot, and I laughed, genuinely, for the first time in years, while assembling furniture. And every time my phone buzzed, I practiced silence. Every time I reminded myself, I am not a wallet. I am not a safety net. I am not invisible. I am Ruby Bennett, and I choose when to help. The click in my head, the first tentative key turn that day with the peaches, had become a door swinging open, and I stepped through. The days after the showdown were quieter than I expected, yet heavier. Silence can weigh like a stone, pressing down with unspoken expectations. My phone, once a river of demands, became a mirror reflecting choices I'd made. For the first time, I could see clearly. Every notification was mine to answer, or not. I spent mornings touring the condo again, measuring furniture spaces, imagining the life I would live without compromise. The green-tiled bathroom caught my eye every time, a little sanctuary, a place where I could be alone with my thoughts. Alone, yes, but no longer lonely. And the texts from my family? Sparse, clipped. Mom sent a cautious, "Are you okay?" one morning. I typed a single word. Yes, no explanation, no justification, just a boundary maintained. Jenna's messages were sharper. "You're heartless," she typed one afternoon, followed by a flurry of angry emojis. I didn't reply. Her attempts to manipulate, to draw me back into the old cycle, failed. I had realized that being calm and compliant had been mistaken for weakness. No more. At work, I felt a different kind of freedom. Courtrooms, client meetings, depositions, they had always been my arena. But now, every argument I made, every case I won, felt like it was backed by personal authority, not just professional skill. My life and work merged in a way that was no longer about sacrifice. It was about presence and ownership. 2 months later, my parents invited me over, but without the usual tension. The house smelled the same, lemons on the counter, TV murmuring softly, hooks with keys still in place. Mom poured tea she rarely drank and set a cup in front of me. "I shouldn't have taken your card," she admitted quietly. "I shouldn't have told Jenna to." I nodded, letting her words settle without reacting. Years of guilt, manipulation, and family obligation had been distilled into that one quiet admission. Work had taught me clarity. Life had taught me boundaries. "She's back at the boutique," Mom added. "Part-time. She hates it." I smiled faintly. "Boring helps." Mom's lips tugged, almost a smile. "You always liked boring." I shook my head, a small laugh escaping. "I'm not the bank anymore." Mom's voice softened. "I know now." Dad, sitting silently, watched my hands. I should have stopped it earlier. "You were keeping quiet," I said. He nodded, understanding finally settling between us. "Do you hate me?" Mom asked suddenly, vulnerability threading her words. I shook my head. "I'm angry less now, mostly tired. I don't hate you." She exhaled slowly, as if letting go of decades of tension. "Can we see your place?" "You can," I said. "Bring peaches." We laughed. Small, tentative, genuine. The past wasn't erased, but we had begun to map a new way forward. At the apartment, I unpacked the last box on my wobbly IKEA table. The green tiles reflected my tired but steady gaze. I thought about the kitchen at my parents' house, the knife, the peaches, the maul, and I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and triumph. The key in my mind had turned fully now, and the door I opened was mine alone. Boundaries, I realized, felt cruel when you'd been trained to be endlessly useful. But they weren't walls, they were doors, and I alone held the key. People who loved me knocked. People who wanted access without asking? They stayed outside. Jenna eventually sent a photo of a tiny paycheck. "It's not much, but it's mine," she typed. I replied simply, "Proud of you." And I put my phone down. That night, I ate at the wobbly table, staring at the green tiles, thinking, I did this. My card stays in my wallet unless I decide otherwise. My life is mine. And for the first time in years, I believed it. The weeks that followed felt like waking from a long, foggy dream. The storm with my family had passed, but the air was still charged, crackling with lessons I had only just learned. Every interaction, every choice, was now filtered through clarity I'd fought to claim. I spent early mornings in my new apartment, coffee in hand, the city skyline stretched like a canvas. The green-tiled bathroom reflected my face back at me, tired but unafraid. I thought about how often I had allowed responsibility for everyone else's chaos to suffocate my own ambitions. That suffocation ended the day I reclaimed my card, my money, my boundaries. Messages from my family trickled in now, like cautious streams rather than torrents. Mom sent updates about her work, Dad shared a funny memory from his childhood, and even Jenna reached out occasionally, Not for money, not for manipulation, but with tentative small victories she wanted me to see. First paycheck at the boutique, Jenna texted one evening. A single photo, no emojis, no drama. I typed back, proud of you, keep going. It wasn't just pride, it was distance and perspective, a recognition that she was beginning her own journey, just as I had begun mine. I didn't feel responsible for smoothing every bump, covering every mistake, or absorbing every hurt. For the first time, I watched the lives I loved unfold without my constant intervention. Even my relationship with Charles deepened in this period. Without the suffocating stress of family entanglements, our connection felt clearer, warmer. Weekends became ours, plans became mutual, and our conversations held depth beyond obligation. I realized that claiming boundaries wasn't just about protecting myself, it allowed love and trust to exist without guilt or coercion. One quiet Sunday, I stood in my kitchen, the wobbly IKEA table scattered with boxes yet to be unpacked, and thought about the peaches, the knife, the mall trip that had set everything in motion. The memory no longer stung, it clarified. That incident, seemingly trivial, had been the first tangible click of a lock turning inside me. I remembered my mother's words, tinged with vulnerability, and my father's tired acknowledgement. I had carried decades of expectation, debt, and quiet compliance, and now I had lifted it from my shoulders. It didn't mean forgiveness was automatic, or that old habits would vanish, but it meant that I would no longer be a pawn in someone else's narrative. Later that evening, I called Mom. We talked not about money, not about obligations, but about ordinary things. Tea, the weather, books she'd been reading. She asked if she could visit the apartment. I said yes. She hesitated at the door, then handed me the spare key I had never used. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Not for access to the apartment, but for acknowledging that trust must be earned, not demanded. As I watched her leave, the quiet settled around me like a warm blanket. My keys felt heavier, yes, but not from burden. They felt heavy with ownership. Every choice, every boundary, every no I had spoken had been a key, and I had turned them all from the inside. Sitting at my table that night, staring at the green tiles, I realized the simple truth. Freedom isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the steady knowledge that you are no longer at the mercy of others' whims, that you exist for yourself first, and those who love you will meet you there, or they will remain outside. I picked up my phone and smiled at the screen. The texts, the alerts, the unending requests, they no longer ruled me. I had reclaimed the narrative, and in doing so, I had finally claimed myself. The first click, the peach incident, the mall, the confrontation, had been the beginning. Now, the door had swung fully open. I was Ruby Bennett. My life was mine. My boundaries were firm, and for the first time, I breathed without compromise.